Joining me this morning, which is actually well past midnight for Mr. Bill Gates, so joining us straight from Seattle. Thank you very much, Mr. Bill Gates, for speaking to us here at the Times Now Summit, where we have in the audience, apart from millions of viewers of Times Network's channels, we also have decision makers of the country joining us. I often read what you write about India, and I recently read, because you've been visiting India since the 1990s. In your blog, Gates Notes, you've written around this time last year, I wrote a Gates Notes post that, that's what you say. I just returned from my visit to India and I can't wait to go back again. And then you also said last week, I got my wish and returned to India and now I'm home and I can't wait to go back yet another visit to India. What are the three big things that keep drawing you back to India? What do you really pick up in terms of comeback factors to India, unstoppable as we are calling it today?
Well, of course, in my first career at Microsoft, I had a great experience in India where over the last 25 years, Microsoft has built up a team there, now over 25,000 people. And on my last trip, I went to Hyderabad and we celebrated the great work that's gone on. More recently, in my foundation career, India is a key country for us. It's the country that we have the most on-the-ground activities and very deep partnership with many of the ministries at the union level and with several of the states, particularly UP, Bihar, and now Orissa, where I made my first visit just recently. It's really the breadth of talent in India, the desire to move quickly, a real interest in low-cost solutions that not only work super well for India, but also can scale and have an impact in all developing countries. And so the model that we're using in the foundation for many of our projects is that we work first in India, either with the government or the private sector, and then we learn together and then help other countries. That's true in all our health work where, vaccines are probably the most famous, but now drugs and diagnostics are joining that list. And then, of course, everything in the digital realm, where India pioneered starting with the identity system, but now more and more digital public infrastructure. And it was fantastic that India used the big G20 meeting to introduce other countries, and we've seen a lot of uptake. And so I sat down with the government. We talked about how we're helping other countries get on the same path that India's on. And then I saw some recent applications like pest control and educating farmers that were really very impressive. And, I think the platform's just going to keep getting richer and richer.
Well, I want to ask you about the Indian growth story. The theme of our summit this time around is Unstoppable India. India has grown by 8% in the last quarter, and we are heading towards election, and it's always a noisy election in India. What's your outlook for India and its place in the world in the coming years?
Well, India's had pretty steady growth for some time. Obviously there's countries to learn from that also, had periods of very long growth. India will have to do things its own way. Manufacturing, for example, will play a role, but not as great a role as it did, say, in China. Services will play a greater role. I think the basic investments in health and in education to really benchmark and say, okay, where's the Indian education system falling short? How do we deal with such a range of skills in the public schools? I'm pleased that the willingness to really look at, okay, where are the deficits? Where are the exemplars in the country? And here, technology is also going to be a very big tool, starting with the digital platform, but then also with AI. And, maintaining 8% or 7%, even 6% growth over decades is very hard to do. You have to streamline things, engage the private sector in the right way. But for India, it's that investment in youth, and acknowledging, okay, where in nutrition do we still have more to do? Where in education do we still have more to do? And the people, I'm working with in the government, have these goals in mind. So, our foundation ends up being a partner in helping the government achieve many of those goals, particularly in health, but also in agriculture and to some degree even in education.
Well, you, Mr. Gates, meet a lot of people during your visits to India. You've met scientists, you've met Prime Minister, you've met women who are lifting their communities out of poverty, students at IIT, agriculture experts, but you also had an interesting meeting with a Chaiwala. And you said in India you can find innovation everywhere you turn, even in the preparation of a simple cup of chai. And Chaiwalas have a huge story and connect with the present success story of Prime Minister Modi. Tell us a little bit more about this latest experience that really hit social media like a storm, and your experiences with this Chaiwala.
Yeah, I flew into Hyderabad at the start of my trip, and it was actually my team, that thought, okay, let's do something fun that shows that you're, fascinated by India, and, you'll be learning even more about Indian culture. I had no understanding of, Chaiwala, and even they told me it was in the Prime Minister's career. And so when we actually did the video, I thought, maybe hundreds of people would watch it. And so it's certainly my surprise that it became, kind of a phenomena. And as during my trip, everybody was saying, oh, how about that? That was really fun. So, the entrepreneurial spirit there, and, we had a nice setting where we did it, that sort of framed things. But then, I had many more serious things, including an extensive conversation with the Prime Minister, and I really enjoyed the dialogue with the students in Delhi. It's always fascinating what questions I get asked, and then to see the progress, so that the foundation can tune how we're a great partner.
And what about the big fat Indian wedding? Did you enjoy that one on your last trip?
Yeah, I mean, Mukesh Ambani has been a good friend. I've, followed his work. One of the afternoons I went and toured the refinery there, which is a very impressive piece of work. And, Mukesh was pretty busy, but I got a chance to talk to him about some of his new green investments. And, I felt very lucky to be included, and the hospitality was, the best ever.
Mr. Gates, the Gates Foundation has been extensively involved in healthcare initiatives in India over a long period of time, particularly in combating diseases like tuberculosis and malaria. How do you see India's progress towards achieving universal health coverage? Even as we speak, about 12 crore families are known to have the coverage of Ayushman Bharat, which is the insurance cover provided by the government, which is India's step towards universal health care for underprivileged. How do you see this impacting Indian population in the long term, especially the underprivileged population of India?
Yeah, the foundation has had, ever since our beginning back in 2000, India is a key place that we've worked. And, it's been great to see that the resources and focus going into primary healthcare have been very, very strong. We work mostly at the primary healthcare level. So the great advance in reducing childhood death and maternal mortality, that's where we're very specialized. India has adopted a lot of new vaccines for things like pneumonia and diarrhea. Those have made a huge difference. Of course, they're also made by our partners in India at very attractive cost and therefore beneficial not just to India. There's still work to be done on things like nutrition and anemia, and the government has set very ambitious goals. There's some particular diseases like Kala-Azar or lymphatic filariasis where the government's very ambitious there, and really we've been able to make very good progress with them. So as you get past primary health care, that's somewhat outside our priority focus. I did a lot of learning this time to see how non-communicable diseases are an increasing priority, and trying to think, how the foundation could be helpful in that space. But, we're still very focused on the infectious disease burden, and, the vaccine coverage, and the understanding of, where there's still pockets that we need to work on. It's been great to see that emphasis on empowering the workforce, using digital databases, and even looking at the districts, what they call aspirational districts, and saying, okay, the numbers aren't quite as good in these areas. Let's try to make sure they're not left behind. So that, sense that every Indian life is valuable fits in with the very values that drive the Gates Foundation.
Mr. Gates, you've had a lot of faith in Indian innovation and the manner in which it should be playing a bigger role in global health issues. How do you see the road forward, and what do you think India could do in this area?
Well, India is already having a huge impact with the vaccine industry. Everybody knows Serum, but we've also got great partners like Bharat, Biotech, and BioE, and they each, have brought some great strengths. In fact, the majority of all the vaccines purchased by UNICEF or Gavi are coming from these manufacturers. So I had a chance to touch base with each of them about what the product roadmap looks like, and what we can do even more. There's room for innovation in vaccines. There's a lot of diseases we don't have vaccines for, including TB. We have a first-generation malaria vaccine, but we'll need a second-generation vaccine that has even better protection. Also in the drug area, there's a lot of companies in India that are very advanced there. This was the first time I met with the diagnostic companies. Many of those, expanded to step up for the COVID pandemic and now want to be global diagnostic companies. So I met with a number of them, and we have ambitious goals like a TB test for under $2, and we're going to use those partnerships to get a lot better diagnostics for India and for the world.
You also met with the Prime Minister. You've done that several times in the past, but once again last month. I want to know if you can share with us whether you spoke on issues of health being priority, healthcare has been prioritized, digital transformation in healthcare that's taken place, and how India can play a role in changing the global healthcare scenario across the world. Any conversations on this between you and Prime Minister Modi?
Well, certainly, health is 2/3 of what our foundation does. And so we're always talking about the latest thing, and how through partnerships in India, we can prove them out. Treatment for anemia, we need to get the cost of that down. There's a breakthrough that instead of a pregnant woman who's very anemic needing 6 infusions, looks like we can go with 1. And then I was talking with Indian partners how we take the cost of that, which is over $30 today, to get that under $10. Anecdotes with the Prime Minister, the government is putting increasing money into healthcare, and it's maintaining a significant share for the primary healthcare. You've got to spend both at the hospital level and these wellness centers that a little bit, the pandemic, although it was tragic, accelerated the notion of, okay, how many tiers do we have? What services are available? It's been great to see the investment in that, even in the states where the healthcare statistics had been behind. The improvement in Bihar and UP, which have been two of our big focus states, are really strong, which the state and federal government have really made that happen. We're pleased that we got to pitch in with it. So yes, it's an exciting time in health, because our understanding of things like malnutrition, finally we're getting some low cost interventions there, that, will make that the human resource, which is the primary resource India has, even more effective.
Mr. Gates, do you really believe that digital public infrastructure that has been made in India is an example to the world, especially amongst developing countries, in providing healthcare effectively to a larger base of citizens? The manner in which COVID vaccinations were given through apps, does that really give a statement of sorts to the world?
Absolutely. The digital approach, you can track, where they're pregnant women, are they coming in for their visits? Are they getting their vaccines? You can make sure that, all the workers are being hired, that they're properly trained. During the pandemic, those digital systems were very impressive. And, now that's being applied to routine healthcare, starting with things like the Potion Tracker, that's coordinating the work of the Anganwadi workers, and eventually all the health workers will get a common view and be able to share data. So that vision that the Prime Minister has enunciated, there's good progress towards that, and in the next several years, we'll really get that implemented. So digital pays off. Even in agriculture, which you wouldn't think, what I saw with the pest control application, that you immediately tell the farmer who's nearby that they need to get there and intervene before the problem becomes significant. The statistics on how that's reduced pest loss, that was the first time I saw that kind of system working well. And, digital applications, the efficiency with which you can give advice to citizens, share information with citizens, get payments to citizens. We always knew that it was a platform that it would get broader and broader, starting with the identity and payment, but now in health, education, and agriculture is the ones that we're helping out with.
Well, during your last visit, I was privy to a conversation that you had at the breakfast hosted by Minister Hardeep Puri. I happened to be there in your honor. And this conversation on artificial intelligence, a kind of conversation that was given, a presentation that was given by Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar. Do you think artificial intelligence, deep fake, are these areas where India can collaborate with other countries and find the best balance between the positives and the negatives of this technology?
Absolutely. And, it's great that people are already looking into, what is the ability to create, say, a tutor or to provide health advice? And, how can India be an exemplar in terms of taking advantage of this while maintaining the kind of quality that obviously in health and education you want to have? And, the opportunity and challenges are global in nature. The companies doing this work are quite global. For the foundation, we'll have India as a place we want to really help get the pilots done. And so the dialogue about, okay, under what regulatory scheme do you let this go full speed and yet deal with those challenges? India will absolutely be part of that dialogue and bring a lot of expertise to it. As the government embraces these things, their ability to understand what the rules around them should be gets that much stronger.
Well, you've also worked with Minister Smriti Irani in the area of women and childcare. Your takeaways from some of the work in that area?
Well, that ministry has a huge responsibility for uplifting women, which is a very important thing all over the world. It's one of the great things, upsides the Indian economy has to maintain growth, is to draw women into the workforce more. Obviously, for women, everything around maternal health, is important, and that's an area that we are putting a lot into and we'll be learning together, including the anemia work I mentioned, but not just that, many other areas as well. So, the idea of promoting nutrition, balanced diets, helping women's groups, getting women connected to these digital systems, constantly tracking that, okay, a lot of people are using digital bank accounts, but, are women doing that equally to men? And if not, why not? Do we need to use women's groups? How do you overcome any sort of cultural barriers? A lot of the most deprived women are out in the rural areas. Do we have the kind of coverage and information for them? And so the minister's done a good job of drawing us in as a partner, and we even used a comic book which is out there to get the nutrition information out very broadly.
Well, of course, she's known to be a firebrand minister back home in India. Thank you so much for your time. But before I let you go, Mr. Bill Gates, it's election season and nobody is let off on this summit platform without a question on who they are putting their bets on to form the next government. Any wild guesses on the election season, and what do you think you're going to see in India post the month of June?
I'm very focused on the U.S. election where I am a voter. Obviously India should be proud that it's the world's largest democracy, and, you're allowing lots of different voices to be heard. We will work, in every state we'll work with, whoever the voters choose. I'm sure there'll be, some degree of continuity. And we're a neutral organization, but the idea that politicians compete less on who's in their group and more on trying to lift everybody up. It's great to see that in India you can have politicians saying, okay, I'll do better at vaccine coverage than you do, and no, I'll do better on nutrition than you do. So the fact that these basic issues, that the democracy helps air them, and the record on these basic human needs is part of how politicians is selected. I think that is great for India.
Well, I know you won't speak more and not name, but your answer there on the continuity, I think the message has got across to the audiences here, Mr. Bill Gates. But clearly the silver lining for democracies that are alive and kicking, and that's the most important part. Thank you very much, Mr. Bill Gates. Thank you for answering all the questions, and thank you for giving us your time in the middle of the night, not a very respectable time in the United States at this moment, and addressing this august audience here, the cross-section of Indian society, decision makers, India Inc. and government representatives, all here listening to you. Thank you very much for joining us here on the Times Now Summit.